We begin in Gaza, where the Israeli military has targeted Beit Lahiya in the north of the Strip in a strike that's killed up to 100 Palestinians. Dozens of others have been injured and the death toll is expected to rise. Northern Gaza has been under an Israeli siege for more than 15 days. The United Nations is warning Palestinians are being forced to endure unspeakable horrors. And in Deir el-Balah in central Gaza, at least one airstrike hit a residential building near al-Nuseirat refugee camp. Our reporter there, Hani Mahmoud, told us he heard the strike himself as it was close to where he was reporting from. Well, as we've been reporting, the Israeli military has been targeting heavily populated refugee camps and cities across northern Gaza. There have been repeated attacks on Beit Hanun, Jabalia, al-Shati camp and Beit Lahiya. The north's been under Israeli siege for 15 days now, and people have little to no access to any proper food, water or medical supplies. Israel claims its operations are aimed at stopping Hamas fighters from regrouping in the area. Hani Mahmoud has been following the attack from Deir el-Balah in central Gaza.
The extent to the brutality of the attacks keep unfolding, with many people are still buried under massive piles of rubble. We're talking about attacks and the kind of weapons, bombs dropped by the Israeli military that turns areas into dust, but also because we're talking about a very densely populated area where residential homes are back to back, giving the smallest space available for people and for the urban area in that area. So large pieces of concrete as a result of the attack and the destruction it stays in the location, makes it very difficult for the paramedics and the civil defense crew members to conduct any rescue mission. We understand that the Israeli military issued a statement talking about disputing the figures. We're talking about close to 100 people killed in the attack, the majority of them women and children and elderly. And more than half of the people killed are in fact people who were forced into evacuation from Jabalia and other parts of the eastern and central part of the northern cities of the Gaza Strip as the siege continues and the mass bombardment continues. So these people, even when they are seeking shelters and safety elsewhere, are being bombed, maimed, and killed in the very location that they chose to seek shelters and safety. This is at the western part of Beit Lahiya, better known as Beit Lahiya Project area. It's very densely populated, as I said, and more recently, the population doubled because of the enforced evacuation orders by the Israeli military. But other than the 100, we're looking at many people are still buried under the rubble. Under an eyewitness from the area described the massive explosion resulting from multiple airstrikes, shaking the very foundation of the surrounding areas. And by the time rescue teams and paramedics arrived to the bomb site, it was already late for the initial numbers of people who were killed.
Well, let's bring in Hassan Mneimneh. He's a scholar and political analyst with the Middle East Institute. He joins us live from Washington, D.C. Hassan, up to 100 Palestinians were killed in just this one Israeli airstrike in Beit Lahiya earlier. What is Israel's playbook here with the continuing mass killing of civilians and the total destruction of infrastructure in the north?
Well, impunity breeds more of these attacks. We have now, for more than a year, we've been inviting the viewers, the population all over the world to consider whether the U.S. failure to rein on Israel and stop such actions is due to incompetence, to indifference, to complicity. And frankly, at this point, given the silence, given the de facto actually participation of the U.S. through U.S. weaponry in all of this, we cannot avoid the statement that there is indeed a U.S. complicity in what seems to be a deliberate attempt on the part of Israel to gain some territory, to expel the Palestinians by brute force through examples of horrors that we're witnessing. And the response from the U.S. is what enables that. And we have gotten to the point where there is a level of habituation.
Hassan, let me just jump in here because that's a good point you make. I mean, how does this fit into the so-called general's plan, this widely circulating plan to depopulate, occupy, kill hundreds of thousands of Palestinians in northern Gaza under this pretext of security and the captives held in Gaza?
Well, it's a very weak pretext. But here the issue is that orders have been issued for these people to leave not just the houses that got destroyed, but actually their places of refuge, while killing them on their way out. And if they do not comply, they get killed. And not simply get killed. We're witnessing really a horror show here. But once again, I mean, we cannot dissociate that from the silence, the apathy, the what appears to be apathy, but what is really complicity on the part of the enabler. Israel would not have been able to do that had the U.S. administration not enabled it to do that. And therefore, yes, Israel is achieving what ultimately is evidently its clear goal of this whole operation, which is to depopulate the Gaza Strip in its totality, starting with whatever chunk it can, because the ripple effect of the expulsion of this population onto the south, a south that is destroyed, that is facing famine, epidemics, and unlivable conditions. So the result is going to be that there's going to be more of a desire to do more, to get more land, to grab more land, and to kill more.
And Hassan,
unfortunately,
yeah, it's worth pointing out that the international community, including the US, continues to be criticised for supporting what is the continued killing and displacement of Palestinians in Gaza, as you've just pointed out. Why do Western powers then continue to enable these genocidal acts by Israel? Why?
Clearly, the reasons are multiple. They stem from a certain narrative that has been basically adopted and enforced throughout. When we see that from the very beginning, whether it's President Joe Biden, Vice President Harris, I'm not even going to talk about Trump, whose intentions are really clear in that respect, but all the political class, and going from the US to Europe, with really few exceptions and a few moments, there's a total acceptance of the Israeli narrative that Israel has the right to defend itself. This defense that is given to Israel clearly extends to killing without any limitation, without any actually logic to it. But we never stop listening to the rationalization that all these leaders, I mean, the last example would be the foreign minister of Germany. That's really some shameful comments about a price to pay, even if it is in the lives of civilians. And the problem that we're facing here, not only the West has gone into real moral bankruptcy, whether it realizes it or not, but it has abandoned universal values.
Hassan, just a final thought to you. I mean, US officials have been saying the killing of the Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar a few days ago was an opportunity for a ceasefire, was an opportunity for a pathway to perhaps end this war. So do these continued attacks by Israel now indicate that any hopes of a ceasefire are now well and truly dead as Israel continues its war?
Because that statement was a lie. They all know that it was not Hamas that stood in the way of any kind of an agreement. It was Netanyahu. It was the Israeli government. But once again, in basically being supporting Israel to the limit, even when Israel does not pretend, even when Netanyahu does not pretend that he wants ceasefire, you hear Biden and everyone else here saying that he does. So we're actually in an Orwellian situation in which basically the killing has become right of self-defense and lies have become listen to what we say and do not see what you see. The killing you have to ignore. Listen to what you say. Israel has the right to defend itself. This is really a point of really kind of a fall, a total bankruptcy that not only the US but the West is suffering. And the price to that, we're going to suffer, all of us, for decades to come, unfortunately.
Hassan Mneimneh, many thanks for your thoughts and your analysis. Thank you for talking to Al Jazeera.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.